Hey everyone, what's up? It's time to Nefis and Chill, and I hope you guys are enjoying the Dragonhold patch. For console players, it's going to come in about a couple of weeks, but for those of you who are on PC, North American PCU, hopefully you're enjoying the new patch. If not, yeah, it's going to be a rough patch for definitely a lot of people, but in terms of raid diversity, it is probably the best patch in a while to actually introduce more class diversity in raid compositions for PvE and ESO. And I will definitely recommend you guys watch my previous raid composition guide video as to the reasonings and whys and hows of why raid teams do what they do or bring certain classes in. That'll be at the end of the video if you guys want to click on it and watch it. But otherwise, I will be showing you guys the raid composition, most likely the ideal raid compositions for the Dragonhold patch, just to clear up some confusion and some misconceptions. I do put this as a disclaimer at the beginning of the other video as well. This is not a video meant for you to be like, oh, we have to play these classes. This is just a video to show you sort of an end game way of thinking for PvE, for pushing scores, for optimizing speed runs and damage and so forth. It's not a video telling you guys you have to do this or you're garbage. You have to do this, blah, blah, blah. It's not for everyone. I completely understand. You can do whatever you want in this game. But this is for if you're interested in pursuing endgame and interested in optimizing your raid composition. And this will also answer a few questions about the Dragonhold patch. A lot of people in my Discord have been asking, oh, what's best this patch? What's best next patch? What's the best mag DPS? What's the best stamp DPS? So this video also sort of partly answer most of the questions as well as we move along here. So in addition to the minor buffs and so forth that we had in the first video, like where I explained to you guys what each class offers. The Templars have minor sorcery. You also have Power to Light for Templars. Dragon Knights give minor brutality, Engulfing Flames. Nightblades have minor savagery they provide to the group. That's why you had Nightblade tanks and Sunspires have Nightblade DPS, like 2 Nightblade DPS. And you have Wardens that give minor toughness, an extra 10% health, which is very, very crucial for no-death runs in trials and endgame content. And there's other buffs given by other classes as well, like the minor prophecy by Sorcerer. But just for a brief overview, we do have the existence of these minor buffs for the Elder Scrolls Online. And it's sort of like a puzzle. It's like a puzzle. You just have to sort of fit the right pieces together to optimize the damage. So for example, for Magicka raid composition, you need minor prophecy, minor sorcery, right? So where do you get that? You get it from at least one Templar in group. Doesn't matter if it's a healer, tank, or DPS. They have to somehow provide the minor sorcery, and of course you do need the minor prophecy as well from the Sork, which gives you 6% more spell crit rating, which is pretty important, obviously, to optimize damage. So you have all these puzzle pieces. Now we have to apply this knowledge to Dragonhold. And for Dragonhold, there's 2 things that we do need to sort of focus on in order to solve this little puzzle. So in addition to the minor buffs this patch, we have the change to Engulfing Flames and Stagger. Now the change to Engulfing Flames is basically Dragon Knight tanks. If you're just spec'd for tanking, you can no longer apply the full original 10% value of the Engulfing Flames debuff put on targets. So that means you're probably at around 4 to 5% as a Dragon Knight tank. Instead of doing a 10% debuff with Engulfing Flames on a boss or the trash to boost the flame damage of your Magicka DPS, you're only doing about 4 to 5%. And that's without trying to boost it by boosting your max magic and spell damage. Now, it is possible, I actually did make a video about this on the PTS a few weeks ago. It is possible, more than possible, for you as a Dragon Knight tank to get to the full value of Engulfing Flames. I don't think I would recommend it to most people for doing that, because you do have to sacrifice quite a bit of stats to get there. But it is more than possible, and you can definitely get away with it in certain content. I think you can definitely get away with it in the Craglorn trials. You can get away with sacrificing the stats for the full value of Engulfing Flames in Maw of Lorcange, Slime Sanctorium hard mode, even Cloud Rest hard mode. You could probably get away with doing it. But again, you do have to keep in mind you are sacrificing stats for it. Whereas this is encouraging most groups to bring a Magicka Dragon Knight, and this is going to play into the raid diversity of Dragonhold. So, before we talk about the actual raid composition, I'm also going to be talking about the second change this patch, Stagger. Now, Stagger is a unique debuff put on a target. It stacks up to 3 times, and it's applied by Stone Giant. So Stone Giant is the morph of Stone Fist, the controversial class identity change to Dragon Knight. A lot of people wanted a stamina version of Dragon Knight Whips, but they got a Stone Fist, basically. And each Stone Fist has the chance, not the chance, but guaranteed proc Stagger on the target. And each Stagger, of course, up to 3 stacks, increases the amount of damage done by all sources. So it's like, an easy example would be Infallible Aether. You do like a percentage of amount of damage taken by the boss if you apply minor vulnerability to it. So Stagger is kind of the same thing, except it boosts every single damage source. Damage over time, direct damage. So it is ideal to have this debuff now from either the Dragon Knight tank or the Stamina Dragon Knight. Now, a lot of people are going to ask me, well, is it possible to do to keep up the Stagger as a Dragon Knight tank? I think it will depend on your group. Obviously, the longer a fight is, the tougher it will be on your sustain. I definitely think you can get away with it as a Dragon Knight tank to apply Stone Giant. It's gonna take some stat adjustments, but I think you can definitely get away with it in the Craglorn trials at the very least. And people have asked me, do you think you can do both Engulfing Flames, the full value of Engulfing Flames, and Stagger as a Dragon Knight tank? That's pretty tough. That's gonna be pretty. I think the only fight where I would dare to try that is maybe a Solemn Sanctorium Harmon, where you get a lot of room because you're main tanking and you're not really doing anything. Ohm's attacks are very occasional, so that's the only place where I would try to push the boundaries of Dragon Knight support as a tank for, providing not just the full 10% value of the Engulfing Flames debuff, but also Stagger, like a really good uptime. But otherwise, most groups will definitely want to have at least one Stamina Dragon Knight for stamina compositions and one Magicka Dragon Knight for Magicka compositions. And here we're going to go over here real quick. So the general Stamina DPS or Stamina Ray composition will be probably Dragon Knight tank, because a lot of people messaged me before the Dragonhold patch came out, and they were like, "Now that Dragon Knight tanking is dead, what class should I tank on?" And I'm like, it's not dead. It's all that happened was they sort of took away Engulfing Flames from the Dragon Knight tank, and Dragon Knight tanking has been around for quite a while. I mean, it's been the king of tanks for the past 4 years. I mean, the sustain, how easy it is to handle it as a tank class, it's not going away. So I think most people still Dragon Knight tank. And then we have Nightblade tank. So for a typical Stamina DPS composition, we're going to have the Nightblade tank offer Minor Savagery. And this isn't specific to Veteran Sunspire. You can do this in Halls of Fabrication, Maw of Lorcage. You can even have the Nightblade off tank do off DPS in Veteran Halls of Fabrication and Maw of Lorcage. So you're going to have the Minor Savagery given by Nightblades to the Stamina DPS. You won't need to have a Stamina Nightblade DPS. You can just have a Nightblade tank proc the Minor Savagery, which is 6% more crit. And we have the Dragon Knight tank is going to also offer Minor Brutality, but this is sort of made redundant if you're going to bring a Stamina Dragon Knight. Now, you are going to bring a Stamina Dragon Knight if you're not as of a experienced tank or something, to keep up the Stagger from Stone Fist. So you might have a chance to probably put something else besides a Dragon Knight tank, depending on your class preference. I know some people are very keen on trying out Sork tanking or Necromancer tanking, so those are viable options. So this spot can be kind of interchangeable with other classes if you're going to bring a Stam DK, because Stam DKs, through just using Stone Fist, will provide the Minor Brutality needed for the Stam DPS, for the other Stam DPS. Now, this is going to be a little trickier here, so we're going to need at least 4 Stamina Necromancers for an optimized team. So this is playing into another big change I should have probably mentioned at the beginning of the video. The change was that Necromancers can't apply Major Vulnerability indefinitely in like a long chain of coordinating Colossus ultimates. So it's like, it's a 20-second cooldown, but it's a 12-second cooldown starting on the first tick of Major Vulnerability. Obviously in PvE, you're not going to miss your Frozen Colossus. Hopefully you don't miss your Colossus ultimate. In the moment your Colossus applies Major Vulnerability for the next 8 seconds, the 20-second cooldown ticks on, so after about 12 seconds you can apply it again. Technically there's no need to stack any more Stamina Necromancers than 4 or 5 at most, because of the Major Vulnerability cap. However, you can also argue that due to its strong class toolkit for just DPS, you will just bring 8 Stamina Necromancers or 7 Stamina Necromancers as usual. So this is something to be played out. The reason why I put Stam Sorks down here is because, or even a Stam Nightblade or Stam Warden or whatever, the reason why I put those down there is because you do now have the option. You don't need to necessarily bring 8 Stamina Necromancers for Major Vulnerability. Major Vulnerability was a pretty big one. This doesn't necessarily take away from the fact that Stam Crew is probably still in the top 2 or 3 Stam DPS for Dragonhold patch, but Stam Sword comes pretty close to it as well. And the new bound armaments change, I think, will entice a lot of people to play Stam Sword, at least try it out. And I do know, including myself, like pretty much everyone, almost everyone I talk to in the in-game community, we hate playing Stamina Necromancers. We've played it for 2 patches. It's buggy. Blast Bones doesn't work. Siphon doesn't go out a lot of times, especially in Sunspire. Targeting is really weird. So you do have that factor as well. So you can. But again, this doesn't take away from the fact that we do now have a lot more class diversity in raids. Look here, we have Warden Healer, Templar Healer. The healing hasn't really changed for Dragonhold. It's still the same. I will say this though, Warden Healers are definitely number 1 in my opinion now. There's no more question about it, there's no more debate, for me at least, that Warden Healers are now better than Templar Healers, and there's 2 reasons. They offer minor toughness, which is pretty crucial in both 12-man raid compositions and 4-man, like arena and dungeon compositions, if you're going to be hardcore about it. And we do have a minor vulnerability that we can apply. We don't need IA anymore. If you're a Warden Healer and you're in a dungeon or an arena, you don't need to wear Infallible Aether. And that actually makes a lot of room for another 5-piece set. And that can also, transfer perhaps Olorime from the Dragon Knight tank in Vet Black Rose Prison to you. And so the Dragon Knight tank in Vet Black Rose Prison will have a much easier time of living and sustaining through just having more health from Yonakrin and Eben, something like that. So it's a pretty significant change there as well. We also can't really ignore the fact that Nightblade tanks, or just Nightblades in general, also do get a source of minor vulnerability for the same duration as IA, or Infallible Aether. However, this requires them to use Lotus Fan, which is AoE minor vulnerability as well. But again, I think that's sort of gonna be dependent on the fights or trials, and I think it's only really gonna be used by Nightblade tanks, Lotus Fan, I mean. So yeah, that is pretty much going to be the Stamina DPS composition, in my opinion, this patch. We're still kind of testing stuff. A lot of people are testing stuff, but I think even before live and kind of just talking about in the first 2 days, this is probably gonna be the composition for maximum damage. Now, when we're talking about Magicka DPS compositions, it's a little bit more open-ended. Tank slot-wise, you can be, let's say we're doing a 2 tank, 2 healer, 8 DPS composition for most fights or trials. We have a Dragon Knight tank, and we have a mysterious slot. It's sort of like, again, sort of going back to this. Now that you have a Stam DK in the group, you don't really need an actual Dragon Knight. But I think most people will still want to prefer tanking on Dragon Knights because it's very easy to handle. So this is sort of like that. You have an empty kind of free slot for whatever class you want to bring as the off tank or main tank. Because again, unless you're gonna build for Engulfing Flames, you don't really, need another DK or even a DK at all. But this is going to be DPS composition if you are going to bring Engulfing Flames as a tank, and you're going to do 10% of the original value. Stagger. Now, Stagger is still going to be wanted in Magicka DPS compositions. This is why I sort of left this blank, because it's like, well, what if you bring another DK tank? What if you have one DK tank apply the full original value of Engulfing Flames, and the other DK off tank who's not really doing much? It could even be just a stam DK DPS off tank. For example, in Halls of Fabrication Mob Lord, because why not have that tank apply the Stagger for the entire group? So you could see a appearance of 2 Dragon Knight tanks for certain Magicka DPS compositions, or even Stamina DPS raid compositions if you want to just kind of play around with the idea. And in terms of the healers, again, Warden and Templar are probably the best ones, just purely because a lot of people don't seem to like playing Max Sork in PvE anymore, but you do have the option of swapping out the Templar healer with the Max Sork healer. So that's something to consider as well, but we can leave this for now as Templar healer. So the Templar healer is going to be interchangeable with the Max Sork healer or Max Sork DPS. I think you can also sort of have an interchangeability between Warden Healer and Warden Tank. So that's kind of up to you guys, but I think this is going to be the general DPS composition for a lot of cases. And we're going to have, again, similar to the Stamina DPS rate composition, at least 4 Necromancers for the major vulnerability. And we are seeing a comeback, I think, on the first day, or was it yesterday's, Slaymate and Natsona from Natsona's Academy. We're testing Magblades, Magicka Nightblades, and I think it's going to be we're going to see a return of Magblades for sure. Just because of the dot nerfs and the fact that Magblades do have a lot of direct damage components to it, like the bow proc, and the shade now. The shade has been buffed significantly, I believe. The tooltip is very, very strong. So we're going to have the 3 Magblades most likely, or even 4 Magblades. If again, you're going to have a Sork healer. But if you're not gonna have a Sork healer, you can have 4 macros or 5 macros, and 4 macros, 1 max Sork, 3 Magblades, right? Because Magblades do come pretty close to macros. And for the other Magicka DPS composition, it's pretty much the same thing, honestly. This is more for like, do you want to try Sork tanking? So you guys can see what I mean with how diverse raid diversity a raid composition has gotten compared to the past 6 patches or so. First 3 patches being like Stamina Nightblades, just 8 Stamina Nightblades. The next patch after Ellsworth is 8 Stamina Necromancers, 9 Necromancers. And now this patch is more of a toss-up. It's more of a, okay, now it's going to be pretty interesting to theorycraft certain raid compositions, but this is going to be a general guideline to the rest of Dragonhold. This is going to be what you're looking at. This is going to be what you're going to be taking into consideration. And hopefully you guys have learned something from this video. If you did, if you like the content, as always, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's going to be a lot more videos coming out on YouTube. There's going to be more courses offered in Natsona's Academy. So keep an eye on that if you're in my Discord. But again, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Thanks for Nefis and chilling. I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe and have fun.